This is Democracy Watch. Marc, even by today's standards, what is happening in Florida is just banana republic level stuff. So the DeSantis administration ordered TV stations to stop airing an ad that was produced by the group Floridians Protecting Freedom. It's campaigning for an abortion rights ballot measure. So they're saying that it's false and dangerous, and that continuing to run it could result in criminal proceedings, again, for this group that is promoting abortion rights in Florida. First off, so as not to bury the lead here, is what DeSantis is doing illegal?
It is insanely illegal. It is unbelievably unconstitutional. It is an affront to the First Amendment and democracy. And my message to them is they are going to lose this lawsuit. And they're going to lose this lawsuit quickly. And they're going to lose it in an embarrassing fashion for them. But you know what? They don't have any shame. So like when I say that they'll lose it in an embarrassing fashion, they will find some way to celebrate in the authoritarianism that has failed, because that is what these folks do. But I'm glad to see that this lawsuit was filed. I am proud that my law firm is the one who brought this lawsuit. I have a great organization in Florida that is pushing for this amendment. And I am happy to say that the court is taking this very seriously. In fact, there's already a hearing set by the federal judge today. And I don't think it's going to take that judge very, very long to decide that this behavior is so outrageous on the part of a state. I mean, this is not some local county gone awry. You know, sometimes you and I talk about, a rogue sheriff or a rogue election official, and that's not to excuse those. But this is, as you say, these are people who know better what they're doing. And I think the court is not going to be amused.
Well, to that point then, while the groups wait for legal proceedings to continue, where do they stand? Because if the goal here is just to block the ad for a few weeks under the threat of legal action, and then, DeSantis backs off on November 6th, the day after the election, then didn't he just get a de facto win anyway?
Look, I mean, it's worse than that. I mean, they're threatening the TV stations.
Yeah.
I mean, forget about the group. They're telling the TV stations that they could be in trouble. But the good news is the TV stations aren't backing down. The group's not backing down. This is an absolute affront to the First Amendment. We need, it's important that the court prevent this chill of the First Amendment speech from taking place, because these stations do have something to worry about and these groups do have something to worry about. But I think everyone recognizes what an outrage this is.
Are the TV stations continuing to air the ad while the lawsuit plays out?
So look, I think that this is a decision that every station is going to have to make for itself. I suspect that most of them are going to continue to air the ad. I think that the risk is, and we have seen this with Ron DeSantis. I mean, remember, Ron DeSantis is the guy who went after Disney of all companies.
Right.
He is an authoritarian. I mean, he threatened Disney's business over basically operating theme parks. He went after libraries and schools and universities. I mean, this guy's a bully. And so it is important that the courts step in to protect the free expression and robust First Amendment rights, so that these stations don't get caught in this crossfire of a bully on the one hand and the First Amendment on the other hand.
Is there any indication that the courts will move quickly, given that this is regarding an issue that is happening over the next 2 weeks, and then it's pretty much moot after that anyway?
Yeah, absolutely. The lawsuit was filed on Tuesday. And already, as I mentioned, the court has a hearing. So the federal judge who has this case obviously sees this as a very, very urgent matter, as he should. And so I would expect we will get a ruling relatively quickly, and then we'll see what happens from there. Because, the plaintiffs in this case have an argument that they have been injured beyond just the short term here. And we'll see whether this case goes forward even after this election is over.
Well, to that point then, could the group, the TV stations and the organization itself, could the plaintiffs here countersue? It just seems so lopsided that DeSantis can weaponize the government and that there's no recourse other than forcing this group and the TV stations to spend money, time, and resources to defend itself from Ron DeSantis's big government bullying.
Right. But remember, Brian, we have seen this playbook from this governor. He created a task force to look into election fraud that, as you recall, in 2022, they arrested people. They arrested people who they then ultimately had to drop the charges on. But in the meantime, you ask the same question, what was the damage done to those people where they were dragged through the mud
Right.
And then the charges were dismissed. Like, this is the authoritarian playbook. This is what Donald Trump says he wants to do if he's elected president, right? He wants to use the process, the threat of governmental action, the investigation, as a way to intimidate his opponents, as a way to, in his case, as he says, get vengeance. And that is the authoritarian playbook we see with Ken Paxton in Texas, we see with Ron DeSantis in Florida, and it is a real culture point right now within the Republican Party. What do I mean by that? This is a behavior that is not condemned by the Republican establishment, it is celebrated. Like, they view people like Ron DeSantis as being strong figures for trampling on these people's rights.
Right. And by the way, while it might not work against an entity like Disney, which has all the resources in the world, they know that it's going to work on everybody else, every individual voter, these small TV stations, these groups that don't have the resources to defend itself or might not want to put themselves in a position where they may lose, even if they have an airtight case. Otherwise, people don't want to go through the trouble of being dragged through the mud. And so just the chilling effect alone for somebody like Ron DeSantis, who wants to wield the weaponization of government as a cudgel against these people, that alone might be enough.
Yeah, and that's the reason why Floridians Protecting Freedom, which is the campaign for the abortion rights ballot measure who brought this lawsuit, deserves everyone's support. You know, we talk a lot about heroic actions by election officials and by groups, but these folks really are heroes. I mean, they are not just taking on the state of Florida on abortion rights. They are now taking on the governor over this outrageous effort to suppress free speech. And I hope everyone supports them, and I hope we put a link in the show notes where people can reach out to this group and offer them support.
Yeah, I'll put it right here on the screen right now and also in the post description of this video. So go ahead and support that organization. And more broadly, remember that they are fighting right now on behalf of the abortion rights ballot measure that's going to be on the ballot on November 5th or earlier if you have the chance to vote earlier. So make sure that you are going out and voting all the way down the ballot, including these initiatives to protect women's reproductive rights in the state of Florida, which was the last haven for women in the South. And since Ron DeSantis decided to make his run for higher office, of course, now Florida has one of the most restrictive abortion laws in the entire country.
And don't you think that it is ironic that, you know, a guy who ran for president and he didn't do well. Let's just say that he didn't do well. You know, it's like he learned no lessons. You know, he presented himself as a bully and couldn't even get anywhere in the Republican primary. And you might think he'd come back to Florida and be like, okay, let me recalibrate and try to represent all of the people of Florida. Let me recalibrate and try to moderate. And instead, he is the same old guy doing the same old nonsense and making the same old threats. And it is time, you know, Floridians deserve better than this.
And what I find especially ironic here is the shamelessness with which he will both use this rhetoric about how he is presiding over the free state of Florida and then using these aggressive, overbearing big government tactics as governor of that very state.
Absolutely. And that's because there's no principle behind it, right? Like, the problem I think sometimes that progressives have, that liberals have, that Democrats have is we try to divine the underlying principle, right? We're like, what does Donald Trump really believe? What is it that Ron DeSantis what is his core? The answer is there's no core. There's no strategy. Like, it's not like they're not playing three-dimensional chess. What they are doing is trying to be an authoritarian. Right. What they are doing is outcome driven. There is an outcome that they want, which is maximum power and maximum control. And they will deploy any tactic that gets them that. They will, where it benefits them to praise the military, they will praise the military. Where they want to disenfranchise the military, they'll disenfranchise the military, which we've seen. They are in court trying to disenfranchise members of our military serving overseas. Where it is in their interest to say they are free market conservatives, they'll say they're free market conservatives, and then they'll attack Disney because they don't like Disney's policies. Where they say that they are against electric vehicles, they'll say there's electric vehicles until Elon Musk turns around and is dancing on stage, jumping up and down like an idiot before Donald Trump. And then all of a sudden Donald Trump changes. It's all situational with them. There is no principle. There's no grand strategy. It's a grift. It's an authoritarian effort to keep and exercise power.
Perfectly put. Again, I just want to reiterate that it's your firm that's representing the plaintiffs in this case. So a small step that we all out here can take to support the invaluable work that Marc and his team are doing in the courts, which is ground zero for all of this stuff, including these extrajudicial efforts by people like Ron DeSantis. We can go ahead and sign up for Democracy Docket. It's the news outlet Marc founded to focus on everything in elections, voting and elections. I'll put the link right here on the screen and also in the post description of this video. So go ahead and sign up. That is a small token that we could pay to show some gratitude for the work that Marc and his team are doing in the courts. I'm Brian Tyler Cohen.
I'm Marc Elias.
This is Democracy Watch.